Hi, I'm Josh, and I have a really big problem. Before I get into what that problem is, I think I should give some context. I'm currently a college student studying science secondary education, and my plan is in about a year, once I graduate, to become a high school science teacher, specifically physics. That's my expertise, that's what I'm focused on. And so I've spent a lot of time in the last 6 months, especially a year, thinking a lot about science curriculum and what I want a science classroom to look like, and the kind of practices that I as a teacher want to have, and the kind of methodology that I want to use, and the strategies that I want to use. And I've put a lot of thought into this through a lot of assignments I've done in class, a lot of reflecting on what my experience was in high school and middle school and the science classes I took. One thing I've thought a lot about through a lot of the discussions I've had is the STEM pipeline. And this is where my problem comes in. This is where I have a really, really big problem. STEM pipeline is basically a student that goes throughout their K through 12 education. They go, hey, I really like science. They get persuaded into some kind of college degree that's in STEM, whether that's engineering or just like chemistry, biology, anything like that. And then they move into some kind of technical career. This would also include like computer science and, programming, things like that. And they get some technical career and they live a great life and they make a lot of money. And that's awesome. I'm really happy for those people. The problem is we have to look at this pipeline and we have to think about the ways that even though the people that are in this pipeline, the people that are getting the degree, getting the job, are having a great life, what are the effects of that? Who is benefiting from this, right? Because you can go and get a job with Lockheed Martin and make 300K and you can live a great life. I mean, if you're a student, you go and you graduate, you work for some company, and now you get to live your life working for a company that's dumping chemicals into the river, or working for a company, like I mentioned, Lockheed Martin, that's just constructing bombs to go use in Palestine. These kinds of things. And so one thing that I've become very critical of and very conscious of is the way that science is often used in unethical ways. And it's really easy for us to look at science as this like grand thing. We look at math as science, like these rigorous courses, and say like that's wow, like intellectually like sound. Like this is like you go there, it's difficult, it's hard to graduate. You might get a really difficult job, but it'll pay well, and all these things. It's kind of upheld as like the best thing you could do. It's what we persuade our students in secondary education to go into. We tell them, hey, you should pick up Python, you should pick up Java, you should pick up these practical technical skills so that you can go make a living. But we don't think about the ways that science can be used in smaller ways. We don't think about the ways that science might actually be harming communities, than the ways that the current status quo surrounding academia and science is harming the most vulnerable people in our world. And we don't talk about that enough. And I think that's a big problem. I feel like I can also speak on this because when I started college, I was not an education major. I came in knowing I wanted to do something in the sciences, but I was undecided. And eventually I settled into physics because I always love physics. I always love math. I love calculus. I'm that kind of person. Like I fit the pipeline. And when I was there, I realized that even though this is something I could be successful in, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't like the people there and I didn't like the culture because no matter how well I did in my courses, I felt this level of intensity and competition that I didn't think was necessary. Everyone there was competing for the highest grade, was competing to do well so they can get the internship, so that they can get the degree. Everything was so intense and everything became kind of elitist. And that's the word I think I'll be using a lot here to describe what I felt was happening in the physics field and in my classes. I think physics as a subject is very, very elitist. And that's frustrating because even though this kind of status quo or like the standard is that physics is a subject that's difficult, or like you have to be like a genius to achieve anything in that field, I just don't even think that's true. And I don't know why that's the standard. I don't know why we want to gatekeep these subjects when there's ways that we can break them down in more accessible ways. Again, this applies for all the sciences, but it's specifically with physics because even people my age and my grade, they don't like physics. Nobody likes physics. Nobody wants to take physics because they all think of it as just this like, I have to be Einstein level genius to take it. It's not true. You don't have to be a genius to like and appreciate physics, and you don't have to be a genius to like and appreciate science. And our current educational system K through 12 and like collegiate doesn't represent that, and it doesn't reflect that. And the way we teach these subjects reinforces the fact that you have to be this typical like Einstein level guy to do well in it. Hi, I'm currently standing in front of my whiteboard now. This was an assignment that I had, or something I did for an assignment in one of my classes, in which I'm currently observing a high school science classroom. And I've written a lot of observations and notes and things like that over the course of the semester. And so I kind of put a collection of thoughts that I have on the whiteboard. I'm aware that it looks like that. But the main thing I really wanted to talk about here with what I was saying is down here when I said doers of science. So that's another big thing that I think that we do so wrong in science curriculum, is that we teach science as something that you need to learn and something that you need to memorize, and then something that is fact and not to be questioned, instead of saying, hey, science is a tool. Science can teach you how to critically think. Science can teach you how to problem solve. Science can be used to better the world and to change the world. We don't teach science that way because, I don't know, for whatever reason we don't. And that's really frustrating, because if we teach students, hey, physics, if you get a foundation of physics in your educational career, you can use this to engineer solutions that can better the world, better your own life in ways that impact you and are relevant to you. And I wish we did that. I really wish we did. And it's frustrating that we don't. Science should be a subject that actually centers students. Students should be the focus of science education. They should have the autonomy. They have the ability to talk about things that matter to them and talk out loud and communicate their ideas. Like I said, we should be communicating problem-solving skills, critical thinking, these kinds of things that are especially important nowadays when you have the rise of misinformation, you have an increased use of AI, you have all of these problems in the world that students are very much aware of. And we're teaching science in a way that was the same as it was 20 years ago. It doesn't make any sense. I also think, importantly, we teach science in a way that also just kind of sucks the fun out of it, and sucks, I would say, the beauty out of it. Because at the end of the day, science is simply about observing and defining what we see in the natural world. It is literally the study of the world we're living in. And yet that's something that's been kind of watered down so that only certain groups of people get to experience that and appreciate that. And that's a problem. And so to me, I look at science and physics and these subjects as inherently beautiful, as inherently interesting. And I always had this thought, and I think the words came to me when I saw, it was a Tumblr post. I don't use Tumblr, but I saw it. I saw it, and it was saying that, like, explain physics like you're in love with me. And then the person replied, everything sings. And I think that's just so poetic and so beautiful. And I'm someone that I love to write, love to read. I feel like I'm pretty artsy, and yet I also love these scientific, these mathematic subjects. And I'm like, why is that? Why is that? Because they seem like polar opposite fields to be interested in. And I realize that they're not, because there is a beauty and there is a level of joy that can come from these subjects. And I think that science should be taught in that way. We should be teaching this as like something really beautiful and something really profound, rather than like you have to memorize X, Y, and Z so that you can go get a degree and so you can go live a life. That's problematic, and I very strongly dislike that. So I kind of hope that's what I can do with this channel. I know I'm not perfect, and I know that there's things I'm going to do all wrong, but I really want to focus on teaching these subjects in a way that is actually interesting, is actually relevant, and shows that like this is just pretty cool, pretty beautiful, you might even say. That's the goal here. If you have suggestions for things you want to see and the things that you want me to explain and the way you want me to explain it, I'm open to so many things. I've taken inspiration from so many different books, so many different other YouTube channels like Crash Course, like, Khan Academy, all of these different things. Veritasium, I think that's how you say it. Those different channels, all of these things. And I really want to create something that is uniquely my own within this context, within this frame of thinking, that science is cool and that everything sings.